Foster care adoption is not a financial question. It's a heart question. I say that because after you spend $0 to $2,500 on the process, get the federal adoption tax credit, and the children you adopted receive free healthcare until age 18, this really isn't a money question. It's a decision you make with your heart. Are you willing to help a child or sibling group heal and thrive? Are you willing to adjust your life to be a child's forever family? But more deeply, are you willing to deal with your own past wounds and hurts to become an adoptive parent? Hi there. My name is Marcy Bursack, and I am your personal foster care adoption mentor. I've been through this experience myself adopting a pair of siblings. My heart for the remaining 113,000 children who are still waiting to be adopted led me to use a stimulus payment to publish the Forgotten Adoption Option, a 70-page guide through this process, and then launch this podcast a month later. Then in 2022, I wrote a children's book called Are You a Forever Family? And I launched the Forgotten Adoption Option app, which spells out exactly what to expect if you plan to grow your family through foster care adoption. You can find all of these resources at ForgottenAdoptionOption.com. I am so delighted that you're tuning in, and I want to welcome you to be real. Real about your heart. Real about any questions that are running through your mind. In Season 3, monthly episodes will cover strategies for thriving as an adoptive family. You might also enjoy Season 1, where you can hear personal stories of adoptive parents and adopted children, and in Season 2 episodes where guests explain how to adopt U.S. children who are waiting for you in the foster care system. Whether you want to begin the adoption process right now or in the future, my heart is to help conquer the confusion and fears of the foster care adoption process so that fewer children continue to wait to be adopted. Welcome to the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast. In this episode, you're going to learn about being an emergency foster home. I'm joined today by Latoria Kern, who serves as a foster parent for emergency situations in Las Vegas. She's also the founder and executive and artistic director at a nonprofit called Family Arts at Whaler Creation. Hi, Latoria.
Hi, Mercy. This is all so awesome. Thank you for inviting me.
It is awesome. Latoria has really good energy. So I think people are just going to love spending time with you, just like I like spending time with you. So a few months ago, a sister queen from the United States of America's pageant system, Mrs. Nevada 2022, started a group text to connect Latoria and me. So hello there, sister queen. She knew that our hearts were doing similar work. And so fast forward, Latoria and I, we got to meet, and the conversation was so encouraging and met with such empathy. And so I got to go on Latoria's media format, and now she's coming on to the podcast and the Forgotten Adoption Option. So I am so excited for you all to hear, because to me, what Latoria does is it's very real, and it's very real life, but it's going to probably shock some of you on the things that we'll talk about in a healthy, good way. But to me, what's so wonderful about that is that Latoria is doing this work and wants to help other people see this opportunity. So more to come on that, but I am so pumped. So before we get into kind of your special niche in this space, Latoria, tell us, how did you get involved in the foster care system?
Oh my goodness. So the abridged version, because I love telling this story because I don't know where she's at today. I was working on my master's degree in Anchorage, Alaska. And while I was in school working on my degree, I worked full-time, gone to school full-time, worked full-time at a junior college. And this beautiful young lady walked into my office one day, and I worked in the admissions department. And she walked into my office and she wanted to go to school. She was super excited. She was well-dressed. She was very articulate. And got ready to do her paperwork. And I said, okay, and she's going to go into the computer field. And I was like, that's a great field to go into. And we looked at the classes. We talked about the classes. She was super excited. And we got ready to enroll her so that she can go to start classes, get ready for the next semester. And I said, the only thing we need to do now is I need a copy of your high school diploma. And she said, I don't have one. And I said, no worries, your GED is, quite sufficient. She said, I don't have one of those either. And I was like, sweetie, you can't go to college until you finish high school. And I asked her, I said, why don't you have a high school? Because she was, at that time, she was like 20, 21, something like that. No, she couldn't have been. She couldn't have been because she was still in the care system. So she had to been maybe 17, 18. She had to been
Mhm.
17, 18. I don't remember exactly how old she was, but she was not a high school graduate and she had dropped out of school. And so I said, well, I'll work with you until you get your GED. Let's get you ready. Let's get you pumped up and go to get you in school. And she said, okay. She accepted my offer. And we started meeting every day. We started meeting and studying together every day. So the more I met with her, the more, she became like a little sister to me. We both are pretty young. I'm in college. She's wanting to go to college. And so we got to a point where we're comfortable enough that she starts sharing with me about her personal life. And she shared with me that she was a foster youth living on the streets in Anchorage, Alaska. And it broke my heart because I could not understand and I could not believe that someone who looked as nice as she did and spoke as well as she did would be living on the streets in Alaska. And she said, well, I'm not the only one. It's a bunch of us that live at the bus depot.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I was doing this paper in school and I turned my paper to her. My focus became very interested in helping them. And I asked her if she would introduce me to some of the other kids. And she did. And I got a chance to interview a lot of kids. Some were homeless. Some of them were foster kids. Some of them were just, runaways or whatever you want to say. They weren't at home. And I did a paper and I started calling the governor, the city council members, nonprofit organizations, schools, communities and churches. I started calling everyone. I was so angry because I had never heard that before. I from the South. We don't have kids that don't have a place to live. And so when I called people, I said, Did you know that there are kids living? Did you know? And I spoke with anger and passion and trying to really help them. And from working with her, I created an organization in Anchorage, Alaska called CRYS, CRYS. And it was a picture of a half a face with a teardrop coming down the eye. And what I did was I just connected kids with services in the community. That's all we did. And so from that day in college until today, I've always been an advocate for foster youth. And when I left Alaska, I moved to Wisconsin and encountered another sibling group that went into care who I was mentoring and had to advocate heavily for these kids. And and their stories of abuse and sexual abuse, it just really, 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 really got to my heart. And so I advocate now today because that young lady walked into my office one day when I was in school.
Do you still advocate with such vigor and loud? Is that still
I
part
don't
of your
yell at people anymore?
But how amazing, right? Like your eyes were opened, your attention was on your needs, right? As a student, these goals you had, and you were so aware of someone else and have the empathy that I know about you today that you didn't just say, oh, I'm sorry. But it sounds like you said, I want to learn more. Will you teach me more? Will you show me more? And then you solved it. You solved it by saying, this is really just a connection problem. Like, do they know how to get connected to the things they need? And you were like early 20s. That's amazing.
Yes.
Fast forward, you grew up in the South. What state was that?
I grew up in South Carolina.
Okay, which is okay. We're actually recording while Latoria is visiting family in South Carolina, so she's there now. Yes. So you moved up to Alaska, but now you lived in Vegas. So how long have you been in Vegas?
4 years.
Okay, so what some of our listeners may not know, this was a huge eye opener when you and I first connected. That the fact is, Vegas is a hot spot for youth in foster care to be lured in really to some dangerous situations. And Latoria is really a refuge as they get out of these situations. And so I'm wondering if you can kind of shine a little light, Latoria, like kind of how do kids get in this situation, but then also what's going on and what's your role as part of that healing process?
Exactly. So a lot of people don't understand or realize or know that a lot of kids who are trafficked, and the girls and boys and young adults, are trafficked by someone that they know. It's not like they're grabbed and snatched off the streets and then they're forced into the sex trade. A lot of times they've been coerced, groomed, and brought into a situation that they can't necessarily get out. And so the young people that, because I had a young lady that came, and the crazy thing, Mercy, is that a lot of the kids are coming into Vegas from out of state. People are grooming them and bringing them into Las Vegas so that they will be, put into a hotel room and have men to come and visit them. Sometimes willingly, other times unwillingly. And I had a young lady that came from California with a friend of hers who she was supposed to have a weekend with her friend. They were grooming her, they were setting her up. Some kind of way, I don't know how, but some kind of way, authorities were called in. And when they came to the hotel room, she was in the room with a couple of men. So, nothing happened. They were able to intervene before, that situation turned horribly wrong. But, she was told by her friend that it was okay. They could make quick money. They had another guy, another person who was, going to protect them and stuff. So it's people that they trust. It's people that they, have a sense of, okay, if you do it, I'll do it. Or we can make a lot of money like this way. And they don't make the money. The people who are, trafficking them are the ones that's making the money. But, so that's one.
Steve, it has a little bit of an attraction, or it looks attractive as an idea, because you're thinking, oh, this is like, it's sort of not exactly similar, right? But I know people in the kind of drug space, right, that you can make a lot of money doing that. And so you can make a lot of money doing this while you're also exploiting so many other pieces of your life and being taken advantage of. So it's a really dicey situation, right? Because you want to trust the people you're around.
And the sad part is that you do trust them. You trust them. They have built up this trust with these persons, but it's like a fox in a chicken coop. The farmer is like, the fox is here just to protect you guys, but the fox is always, watching and trying to figure out which chicken he's going to go on and grab. That was a Southern reference, by the way.
It's a really good one, though. And what I think is interesting, I'm wondering if our listeners, because I think many of them are picking up your language, you're being very thoughtful and I think loving on the people that have been in these scenarios to talk about it in the way that you are. And I hope that our listeners are taking it. And it's one of the things that I loved meeting Latoria, was to hear the seriousness of this, but also to hear her compassion on the people that are in these situations. So where did you intervene then? So youth are in these scenarios, some, young people, someone intervenes and they're taken into custody. And then do you get a phone call like an hour beforehand? How do you then get introduced to these individuals?
So the first time, I'm going to go back to the first time I was introduced to children being trafficked. We had a situation with one of my students who reached out to her worker because she kept, running away. She kept having these missing periods of time, and no one knew where she was at. And this guy, I don't even want to put a label on him, but this guy would pick her up on the weekends and take her away for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And she didn't like it. She didn't know how to get out of it, but she was a foster youth. And she reached out to her worker and she let them know finally that that's what was going on. That's why she was disappearing, weeks at a time. And, and he had these guys, doing what they need, what they want to do to her. And we set up a sting operation. I love this. We set up a sting operation where we were able to kidnap her and well, not kidnap her. We were able to remove her from a situation, and he couldn't get to her. And then we were able to put her in a safe house. And so that was how she was able to get out of that situation. Because if she, walked outside to go to school, he's there and he's like, get in the car. And, she gets in the car and then they go away for the weekend. And her foster parents are like, she's gone away, she's run away. And she didn't. She's being forced to do something that, might have been cool at first, as she thought, but then she realized that this is not what I want. And so we intervened, and we were able to get her out of that situation and put her in a safe place. So we bounced her around a couple of places until she got into a safe spot. That was my first introduction to trafficking.
Wow.
And now I am a foster mom again, and I am dealing again with young people that are being pulled out of that situation into emergency placements, and they are placed for their protection. A lot of times, our young people are from out of state, and they're coming into Vegas. They're, being told, like, let's go to Vegas and have a good time. Let's go to Vegas and, paint the town. We're going to go to all these clubs and party. And they're coming in for a purpose of making whoever is bringing them into Vegas a lot of money. And once the authorities have been notified, they step in and they, ask for ID, ask, where they're from, where they're supposed to be. And if they can't, identify and connect an adult that's supposed to know where their whereabouts is with where that they're in town, they're pulled. And that's a lot of ways that we're pulling kids out, and kids are being placed into emergency situations until they are able to get back home.
And I think you're really breaking down that, like, well, one, you're localizing this trafficking piece, because I think sometimes we think, oh, this doesn't happen in the United States. It does. It absolutely does. And you're validating that. But I'm curious, for people that are maybe trying on could I do what Latoria is doing? Can you explain a little bit about, like, what is your commitment as an emergency foster home? Like, how long do you commit to children? Because you're kind of the immediate person, right? Like, kids are put right into foster care, and you're kind of a holding place. But what kind of commitment that you have to make to be able to be an emergency placement?
So, as you know, you still have to go through the same training as you would to be a foster parent. And you just, they give you options of which way you want to be a foster parent. Do you want to be in a foster and adopt parent? Do you want to be strictly a foster parent? Do you want to be a foster parent for kids? Older kids, teenagers. My focus has always been teenagers and sibling groups, because I just always felt like that was the most needed group that needed a lot of love and support. So that's just been my focus. So my commitment is the same commitment as your commitment as a foster parent. And so your licensings are, annual. So every year you get to renew your license. You still are required to do all the classes that everybody else is doing. And you are able to meet some amazing, beautiful young people, and give them, a few words of advice, and, to help them move on to where they need to be. Now, sometimes, I have kids coming in that, may have lost a loved one, and they just need to be able to have a place for them to be, and a stable place where they can be until they're able to move with a family or another foster home or an adopted home. So it's varied.
It varies. If you had to think about, like, what you've seen personally with, like, the duration of how long these children have stayed with you, what's been, like, your shortest and what's been your longest?
So 4 months, I think, is the longest. I think you can do 6 months, but at 4 months is like the longest. The shortest has been a day. We had a young man came in, and his foster home wasn't ready. And so they needed 24 hours. So the shortest one's been 24 hours.
That's helpful, because I think some people can digest that a little bit differently, right? Because the lifelong commitment that, like, my husband and I have made to our kids to be a forever family is very different level of commitment, right? Than saying, oh, I can help you for a day or a week or a few months. And so just really interesting. So if there's
what the need is, so whatever the need is, that we accommodate. Yeah.
Got it. You're up for whatever the journey ahead
exactly
has in it. So if there's someone that's listening that perhaps you've sparked a little bit of curiosity, or maybe they're interested in becoming an emergency foster placement, what advice would you have to them to help them kind of assess themselves? Like, could I do this? Is this the right role for me?
I would definitely say that we need more long-term committed families than we do emergencies, because emergencies, agencies have places for kids. This is the overlapping. So I would, if that's something you want to do on a short-term basis, that's fine. But if you have the time, if you have the space in your home, and you got a big heart, and you are a sane mind. Because we deal, I say that really sincerely, because I know too many kids have come into my home that talk about the neglect and or abuse that they received being in a foster home. That this just makes me so angry. So if you are a sane-minded, caring individual, you can do short term, you can do long term. The need is real, the need is here, and we do need you, but we need more long term foster parents than we do the short term foster parents. This is that's what my schedule allowed, because I still had teenagers, and so um, that would work. That's what worked for me at the time.
Yeah. So if that's you, listener, if you're thinking, well, my schedule sounds like Latoria's, I don't have big chunks, I would encourage you to call licensing agency and see what their needs are, because that to local to someone else, that might be something they have a gap in. So I think that's really helpful. And so now you run a nonprofit. It's in Vegas, called Family Arts at Whaler Creation. Can you tell us the kind of work you're doing through that?
Yeah, so Family Arts at Whalers Creation was started because of people who influenced me to care about other people. These are people who taught me how to love, how to, give back, how to be a vessel for change, and to be an advocate for underserved. And Whalers are the names of my parents and grandparents. Creation is me. Whalers created me. And Family Arts stands for Foster, Adopt, Mentor, Investing in Lives of Youth. Arts is what we teach. Arts is what we provide kids with job skills training. So we're helping kids learn how to write plays. We do script development. We have kids in studios doing recordings. We have kids that are learning to dance and or creating their own dance movement and giving them an opportunity to perform. And of course, there are the singers, and we have the voice coaches that like to help you with your vocal range and teaching you how to breathe when you sing, and what have you, that way. Um, the Family Arts at Whalers Creation, our big thing is kind of like what you're doing right now, is to educate our community about the need for foster care, adoption, and mentoring, parents and mentors. Um, um, there's kinship care. Kinship care is relatives that are taking families in. So, anything and everything that you can do to be there for a loved one, a young person, that's my encouragement to you. And Family Arts at Whalers Creation was started because that young lady walked into my office 20 years ago, and because 25 years ago, and because I had to advocate for her, because she introduced me to a need in our community that I wasn't familiar with. But every state I've lived in, and I've lived in several states, every state I lived in has a need for foster parents, people who have a big heart, to open up their doors, open up their hearts, their homes, to give and support kids. And if you can't foster, if you can't adopt, then mentor. Give a kid an hour. And so that's what we teach. We're always advocating and asking people to, give back, emotionally. And that's because we hold events. Our events are golfing events, dinners, talent competitions, art. I mean, we've done art galleries, an art show. So we hold events, and then we invite people to come to the event. When they're there, then we talk about, this is why we come together. This is what we need to know about the community needs. And we have, professionals to come in and talk about the various needs. And trafficking is one of them. And the different levels of care, because there are different levels of care, therapeutic care, special needs care, sibling care. There's all kinds of care needs that's needed for our kids. And just wherever you fit in, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but wherever you fit in is where we want you to be, because we need you.
We do need definitely more people in this space. And so I know that part of where your content is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Can you help people know, as we wrap up, Latoria, where can people find more about the work you're doing online?
Absolutely. So the name of the organization is like a whale in the ocean, Whalers Creation. It's WHALERS hyphen creation.us. But another way to always reach out to us is through my phone number. And they can call us at 702. We're in Las Vegas, but we, reach out all across the United States because of our magazine. We have a radio station that we are on 24 hours a day. We have a magazine that's virtual, that's online. So no matter where in the United States you might pick up and read or turn on, listen to us, we want you to do that. But my phone number is 702 235 5490. 702-235-5490.
She says in her radio voice. I hope that our listeners have been just so encouraged by you. To me, there's the insight that you provide, but yet the hope that you bring in this space is such a gift. And I just really value what you're doing, LaToria, that you didn't just hear of a need and say, oh, I'm sorry. Like you really got invested, and that's been your life's work. So I want to thank you for sharing that with us and for letting us understand a bit more about the seriousness of some of the challenges that youth in foster care are facing. So thanks for coming on.
You are quite welcome. You are my shero.
As a listener of the Forgotten Adoption Option podcast, you are helping to raise awareness about foster care adoption and the 113,000 adoptable children in the United States. By leaving a review, subscribing, sharing, and talking about this podcast, you can help a child and sibling groups find their forever family. If you only have time to do one, sharing is the most impactful way to help a child who is waiting to be adopted. If you'd like more information on adopting a child or sibling group through the foster care system, please visit my website, ForgottenAdoptionOption.com. There you will find how to get started using my new and free Forgotten Adoption Option app, and you can even order a copy of my book for adults, The Forgotten Adoption Option, which guides you through the entire process. And you can find my book for children of all ages, Are You Forever Family? You can pick from paperback, audio, and ebook formats, and you might even be able to find my books at your local library. Please keep me in mind as you're thinking of gift ideas and guest speakers. If you have any question about the process, or you're wondering if you're even qualified to adopt, please reach out. Please send your friends and family my way too. You can easily find me by searching for Marcy Bursack on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I intentionally carve out time each week to encourage and teach people just like you. I really appreciate you tuning in, caring, and sharing, because every child deserves to be in their forever family.